Yesterday, CAHAI, the Council of Europe's ad hoc committee on artificial intelligence, held its first meeting day of its second plenary online. This enabled us to bring together over 200 participants from member states, observer states, civil society organizations, private sector, academic actors, to take part in a broad, participatory and inclusive discussion. We had a very informative afternoon with a keynote speech by Professor Joanna Bryson and the presentations of the three expert reports. So in the first report, Mrs. Kathleen Muller of CAHAI in the Netherlands describes the impact of artificial intelligence on human rights, democracy and the rule of law. And actually her report shows that artificial intelligence has an impact on basically every human right and every principle that is relevant under democracy and rule of law. And she also suggests strategies to cope with certain challenges, with certain applications on artificial intelligence that we may consider not desirable. Think about AI-driven mass surveillance, for instance. In a second study, Professor Alessandro Mantelero has mapped existing internationally binding instruments that were drafted not with artificial intelligence in mind, but that are now increasingly being interpreted in light thereof. So he did his mapping exercise in 4 areas: data, health, democracy and justice, in order to identify common guiding principles. And in a third study, Effie Vallena and Marcello Inca did a similar exercise, but for the soft law, so the growing body of ethical guidelines throughout the world, specifically created for artificial intelligence. They actually found that there are 5 main clusters of ethical principles in these documents, being transparency, justice, non-maleficence, responsibility and privacy. They also highlighted the importance of taking into account the relatively underrepresented principles like solidarity, sustainability and dignity. So we also need to consider those when we make further progress on our activities. So the key takeaway of the first day is that the impact of artificial intelligence on human rights, democracy and rule of law is sufficiently serious, and there is enough coherence in the guiding principles, both in existing legal frameworks and in ethical guidelines, to move forward with a legal binding instrument. There was also consensus amongst the experts about the desirability and actually the need to come up with a coherent legal framework on artificial intelligence throughout different sectors, and then in addition to that, contextualize these principles for different sectors. So this is what we're going to discuss during the second day. What would be the main elements in such a legal framework? Can we come up with a definition on AI? Do we need one? So we have much more interesting items on our agenda.